Now, let me teach a few things to us because we want these three importations tonight that will help us prophetically as we move forward. First of all, we have to remember that all order in earth comes through the voice of the one who creates. The earth was chaotic. He spoke. In the midst of chaos right now, he must speak. Therefore, without us and no time in our nation, I don't think since the Civil War have we needed for the Lord to speak more than right now. And so with him speaking, he creates the right order or sequence and produces the timing that we're to walk in. Now, remember, this is what the year looks like. Heaven is opening up, and this year is the sword coming down from heaven. I think if people understood prophetically, instead of just teaching the same things that we've been taught in the church for years, if they could see the prophetic significance of this year, they'd understand why we're going through what we're going through. This is not a surprise to the Lord. This is what the year is about. I didn't come to bring peace. I came to bring a sword, saith Jesus. So you see, this is the year of the sword. That means lots of authority is being tested and lots of division is beginning. A lot of division that is necessary. And so this becomes a great time. Now, here's what this weekend is about. Why is the prophetic word of God to you important in this season? See, why is it important that you know what the Lord is saying? Why is it important to you personally? Why is it important to you corporately? Why is it important to you in your territory? This is a growing, changing territory, the place we live in. Why is it important to you generationally to understand it? Because that is vision. Everybody say the word vision. Now, with that, notice what Proverbs says. Verse 29:18. And I've taken it from a Hebraic standpoint, taken what you've memorized. Without a vision, what happens to a people? They perish. But what that word really means in Proverbs is this: where there is no prophetic utterance from redemptive revelation. Now I want you to ponder these words, which that's vision. Prophetic utterance over what God bought back through his Son to be happening at a certain time and a certain place in your life and in history. That's redemption. And when there is no prophetic utterance from redemptive revelation or vision, a people perish. That actually means they start going backwards until they're in such chaos, what they should have been, they will not be. And I believe the Lord did something this past year to start a reversal in this nation so we will become what we're called to be. It also means without the word creating the boundaries of your life, you'll stray. So this whole concept of without a vision of people perish is linked with prophetic utterance. It's linked with redemptive revelation, and it's linked with boundaries. I asked the Lord this week, I said, Lord, what is the bottom line in all the confusion in this nation? And the Lord spoke to me and he said, this nation has become a nation that resists boundaries. And in the midst of that, you see from the Word of God, the minute we resist boundaries and having those boundaries put in place based upon the Word of God, all of a sudden we start perishing. Now, I want to go ahead and say prophetically, this year, without getting our boundaries established, we will be in the worst place we have ever known 3 years from now. Now, see, that's how prophecy works. That's how prophets work. Now, so it becomes so important for us to intercede into place the boundaries of this land. That's why this week we fly to Laredo, and right across the border, of course, is Nuevo Laredo, and we also fly to McAllen, and we have meetings in both places. Without a people bringing down God's prophetic utterance, the boundaries, if they get shifted and open up wrongly, all of a sudden people perish. This is what happens to kids. I've tried to teach my kids, we had one rule. You're going to let me know what time you're going to be here, and you're going to let me know where you are at all times. Now, every time my kids have gotten in trouble, which, trust me, they have gotten in trouble lots of times, it's because they have violated one or the other of the one issue we had in our family. We didn't have a lot of rules. I'm not that type of person. But I had one that said, you can do what you need to do as long as you tell me what you're doing, where you're at, and what time you'll be home. Because see, if they did that, I knew I had the last say on the whole situation. And that's how God works. He operates from giving us boundaries. Now, I want us to look at that. So the first thing that we want to do is activate the gift of prophecy. Now, I want you to put your hand right here and say, prophecy is getting activated. But without understanding what I've just said, we don't really understand the power of the prophetic word. Now, here's the issue. Without redemptive revelation, a people perish. Now, here's the idea of revelation. God, the creator of the entire universe, decided to reveal his name to us. Now, how's that for a bizarre, beyond mind-blowing concept that he knew you would be here at this time and place, and he wants to reveal to you or uncover to you, that's what the word means, what his name is. Because from the power of that name, you have great authority and ambassadorship in the earth. So, here's another thing about revelation. We're named after him, man, Adam. And that means we carry the ability to have revelation. That's why Paul with the Ephesians, who were worldly, idol worshiping. Darcy and I took a team, Marty, Brian, to Ephesus. He could look at them and say, I pray that the spirit of revelation come down on you. That you would know not only God, but who you are. Look at somebody and say, this just isn't about him, this is about you. Now, here's another thing, because people don't understand the issue about Israel. God is the God of Israel. He created Israel. And here's why you have to always put Israel first as a nation. It's because God gave Torah to Israel. He didn't give Torah to America first. He didn't give the law. He didn't give his son, which was the life. of and the fullness of the law. He didn't give it to any of us first. He gave it to Israel first. Everyone say first. That means that's the prototype, and the only way we can get into the fullness of that is to be grafted into it. Only through the Son can we be grafted into the blessings that go with Israel from Abraham. Now here's something else. The word is not just wisdom. A lot of people will try to teach wisdom. And the beginning of the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. But the word is not just wisdom. Wisdom isn't just the only thing that we have to understand. It's our destiny to be linked to a living word that causes us to become wise like God. Therefore, it becomes very, very important to us that we're not just trying to find the wise thing to do, because Confucius does that. We have to be linked to the living thing that gives us wisdom. All right? And here's another thing. God disclosed his will to man. Gave it to them so that they could capture it for the generations to come. We're receiving from what got captured and recorded, but because it's so living and alive, it's multiplying on a daily basis. Now look at somebody and say, you're not bound by just what's written. What is written is multiplying and extending your boundaries. So really, here becomes your most important question that you ask God, each one of us, is what does God, since he put me here, look at somebody and say, you're here. Since he put me here, what is he demanding of me? What's he asking of me right now? How is he communicating to me? What does he want me to do where he's put me to display who he is? See, that's why we communicate with the one who created the universe. Now, and see, when you realize the realness of God, you're going to see he's pursuing you more than you're pursuing him. He's chasing after you because he wants you to accomplish what he put you here to accomplish. And he's trying every way around you to communicate to you. Through friends, through family, through his word. Every way he can communicate to you. Through the authorities of your life. Through what you see, through your senses, because he's pursuing you so that that which he put you here for, you will say on your last breath here, he'll look down and say, well done, my good and faithful servant. Now, that's what is important. Now, what is prophecy if we're going to get activated while we're here? Go back one, Brian. What is prophecy? How does prophecy operate? Well, prophecy is speaking not just the mind of God, not just the truth. And this is confusing for people. Sometimes God wants you to back off until you feel his heart toward a situation. He doesn't want you to just run in with the truth like a knife. And this is the year of the sword. So the danger for us is we'll be like Peter, pull the sword out, the word out, cut off someone's ear, and they'll never hear. See, when he cut off that soldier's ear that was coming to take the Lord, you see what the Lord did? He put the ear back on because he knew that what he was about to go do was going to give that man who was trying to kill him the ability to hear him in days ahead. And so this becomes very important, that the Holy Spirit reveals to us the heart and the mind of God, and prophecy is we speak it. You just simply look at somebody and say something to them that God is saying or feeling about them. It causes individuals or groups to have an understanding of his covenant plan. It is a release of wisdom and counsel into a situation, but it is also God revealing knowledge that has been hidden so that he can direct us into the future. Now that becomes very, very important as we move forward. Now, with that, let's look at these boundaries, because this is what I want to talk about for a moment. See, you have an invisible boundary around you. Peter called it a sphere. He wrote books about it. He talked about it. But inside that boundary, you have a portion. And the real issue becomes, how will you activate and bring to fullness your portion inside your boundaries? So for a moment, I want you to stop and say, Lord, show me my boundaries in this season in a new way. Now, there's two scriptures I want to mention to you. Satan hates that you have boundaries. And what Satan wants to do is get you outside of those boundaries. What is the whole war about? It's in A Time to Triumph, about boundaries and borders. I said, starting this year, God showed me that in 1986. Starting this year, the war of America would be over borders. That's written. Now, how would God reveal that in 1986? Because God is God, and he was looking for somebody who would hear him say that so they could write it, so they could tell people in 2016, going into 2017, the whole war in the earth realm revolves around borders. Now, here we are in it. We're living in it. And in the midst of it, what Satan wants to do in your personal boundaries, as well as in your territorial boundaries, is break down the borders. If he can do that, then the Bible says this. Put that one scripture up out of 2 Corinthians chapter 2, verses 10 and 11. He will cause unforgiveness in a people to flood through that broken place, and it gives him the upper hand to remove God's covenant plan. I think this is the thing we're not understanding right now, every day, all day long in the news. People who have unforgiveness are used by the enemy to create a scheme to destroy. Now that includes you. It's not just one person. It can be one person or corporate people. It can develop a whole ideology. And so you have to understand your boundaries become the important issue. Now let me show you this. Because, see, God sets up boundaries for you. And this is one of the things that I want to show concerning prophecy inside those boundaries that God has for you. He says this in Acts 17, verses 24 through 27. He predetermined your time and your place, that you might grasp him, pull him down and know him. That is when you study that, it means he has set a horizon line around you and a boundary around you to cause you to prosper. And once you know that, it is out of that your prophecy, understanding and speaking his heart and mind, begins to become active. And so it becomes very, very important that we understand this. Now, think about God. He set boundaries for a promise, and the people couldn't even get into it for 470 years as a corporate people. They went through all sorts of things before they could get inside those boundaries. The first thing I want to say to you is inside your boundaries, your promise lies. The place and time that you're part of. Second thing, cities are made up of boundaries. There's a reason you're in the city or the region or the metroplex that you're in. There's a reason that you're in the state you're in. There's a reason that you're in the nation you're in. And there's a reason that God allows you to give you access through boundaries to gain revelation knowledge so you can go back and cause your boundaries to prosper. Here's another thing. Religion creates boundaries. Very narrow. Therefore, you never can experience the fullness of who the Lord is. And so you have to always be aware of how religion is trying to narrow what you're about. All right, here's the next thing. Other nations all around you have boundaries. And those boundaries have been set for us to respect. And with that, see, we're making a big deal about our boundaries, but I want to respect Mexico's boundaries. I want to respect Costa Rica's boundaries. I want to respect Russia's boundaries. See, you've got to learn there is a reason boundaries. Now, wars arise over boundaries and disputes. Now, I'm not just talking about wars between nations. I'm talking about wars between families. I'm talking about wars over your personal boundaries of prosperity. The enemy cannot stand the thought of you knowing the mind and the heart of God over your boundaries. Because the moment you know him, you can see how he's entered in to keep you from coming into the fullness of those boundaries. And so this becomes very important. Now, the last thing that I want us to talk about is your desire and conscience within you personally war within your boundaries. See, remember when man and woman violated communion and communed with the serpent. What happened was God had to take man and send him out of the boundaries he had given him in the garden. Woman, he said, he didn't send her out. But what he said to her is this: now your desire is going to be shifted. You're not going to be satisfied with the level of communion you've had. Therefore, your desire, until it comes back into full redemptive alignment with me, is going to be desiring to follow after your husband, not just your husband, but what man has for you rather than what I have for you. See, that's how desire works. Desire is this function that is warring, and it's actually warring with the prophetic gift of God in you. And without understanding the function of desire within us, we sometimes will start saying God wants this when he really doesn't want it. Because there is such a strong pull in us to get what we're being turned toward rather than hearing clearly the voice of God. And so one of the things we want to do while we're here this weekend is deal with that desire that's drawing us out of our boundaries, so we can hear fully his desire within our boundaries. See, people look at me and say, how did you get to the place of hearing God the way you hear God? I've had to allow the Lord to kill all of the flesh portion of my desire. Because see, if you don't allow him to do that, what's going to happen to you is, John 8:44 says this, Satan will use that resource of desire in you. He's the father of lies. To speak a lie to you, he will mimic God and then cause you to go after a direction that was never meant for you to go. So we go through this process. Paul says it this way: you're going to have to die daily, so you don't get off track. That's just a good paraphrase. You're going to die daily so you know you're at the right place at the right time and you prosper. See, if you die daily, it doesn't mean, oh my God, we're going to be monks and we're just going to sit and rock all the time. That isn't what it means. It means God wants you at the right place at the right time, so that what he has put you here for, all of a sudden the blessings of God pour out on you. And so, within your borders and within your boundaries are your blessings. They go, any real estate person, which we have some here tonight, know they go all the way from heaven all the way into hell. Once you are aligned properly with God, you own all of it. That's why Father could send the Son all the way down to hell to get back and unlock things that had gone there that had no business being there, and to give an opportunity to bring them back into redemptive order. And see, when we're prophesying generationally. We're prophesying for the generations behind us and in front of us. Things they didn't see manifest, you start prophesying them, so somebody say somebody, will see a manifestation of it. See, it becomes that important for us. Now, here's the prophetic key, and this is going to be our first activation. See, once you're understanding revelation, you move from revelation to the prophetic. Because something's getting disclosed to you, some sort of knowledge is getting disclosed to you that you're going to have to do something with. And then all of a sudden you have a responsibility with that knowledge. See, because here's the prophetic key. God has this will that he wants to convey to man. Look at somebody next to you and say, can you believe he chose you to talk to? And here's what demons do. Demons believe in God. But it's not just believing in God, people. You can believe in God, but it's believing God has a voice to communicate to you. And that God sent his Son to display to us as man who we really are. It's amazing when you think about it. See, Revelation has an idea, it's got this claim to it, and it's got a result. So when we prophesy something or say the heart and mind of God based upon the will that he has revealed to us, all of a sudden some result It's going to happen in the earth realm that's never happened before. That's why the Lord had to have someone back on May 31st, 2008 to ask him, how will America shift? And all of a sudden he said, they'll have to learn to play the Trump card. Now, it has nothing to do with all of Mr. Trump's problems. It has to do with God using that and getting the result in this land that he needed to stir up every problem that was hidden and controlling this nation. That's just how simple that is. Because everything had grown subtle. Everything was going in a wrong direction. And God said, I'm fixing to stir this thing up like a time bomb going off in it. He actually showed me Mr. Trump in America for 3 years. See, he caught me into the future and shared that. Even though that was in May 2008. Now, here's the other thing you want to know about the prophetic key. The mind of God can reach the mind of man. And if you don't believe that, you're never going to allow the prophetic gift in you to come alive. God's mind has put you here. He's putting a demand on you. Look at somebody and say, he's putting a demand on you. We're always saying, put a demand on God. He's putting a demand on you. Doris doesn't know that God didn't put her here to cause me to just for me. See, you are being put here by God, and he's orchestrating your path because he really knows what you're going to accomplish. Everything I do is because of being with them starting in 1990. They get a portion of everything I continue on and accomplish. See, because God reveals his will and mind to man. That's prophecy. You can't pray the Lord's Prayer and not believe in prophecy. So don't see what religion does to the church. He'll have the church praying the Lord's Prayer every day, but never believing that he's going to, hallowed be thy name, reveal his name and his will to you while you're praying it. That's prophecy. See, I think we make this real spooky and real strange when it's really God is demanding you in time to carry his communion with you into the territory that he's called you to be in. Now, and so what God's going to do is create a crisis around you that causes your will to have to align with him. Look at somebody and say, that's why you're in all the messes you're in. Because without him, you're not going to hear what he's trying to say to you sometimes. Because you're just trucking along, and all of a sudden you've got this crisis, and all of a sudden all he's trying to do is to put this demand on you so you two align in the midst of it. Or else, he doesn't even have to use your crisis. He can so cause you to have a heart for a crisis someone else is going through that all of a sudden you carry his burden for that person until you're hearing what he's saying to that person. That's prophecy. And you can't be satisfied till you go tell that person. One of those bowlers we took, the first time they ever came here, they had never been in a church till they came to this place 2 years ago. And when we left, they said that was probably the most incredible experience we have ever had. And I'm going to have to ask several questions about it. But yesterday, I told one of those, because the Lord told me to tell him, you're going to bowl above 260. And he said, oh yeah, LOL, sent me back a text. He really started bowling well, and then in his last game, he bowled 268. And he said, I think God might have done that. It's just really that simple. But that 260 pushed him into the next level. See, because it's the will of God to push us into the next level. But what God will do when you can't believe to be pushed into the next level, He'll use somebody else to believe for you so He can push you into the next level. Because, see, you're keeping your narrow boundaries in place, and He's trying to expand them. And the only way He can do that is He's got to say it to somebody. He's got to speak it to somebody. Now, let's look at this. Here's the power of the prophetic word. See, and here's what you want to know about God. God speaks. And things take on meaning. Fish, roots, water, deer. Because God speaks. Psalms 29 says, the voice of the Lord causes the deer to calve. He speaks and moves things. Now, let's look at this. So the first thing I want to do is, now look, here's the words linked with prophets in the Bible. Nabe. Put your hand right here. Say there's a bubbling up. Roe or Rohai. The Lord is my shepherd. Rohai means you see. Put your hand right here and say, open your eyes. Jose means that a vision, you're going to see something a little different than just seeing. You're going to see something, and all of a sudden, this is going to start speaking to you. See, that's what keeps people from hearing God. They don't understand that this is in motion up here. And that all of a sudden, because it's in motion and because God creates order by His creative voice, He can cause that motion to be illuminated in your spirit man, and all of a sudden, that vision can speak. Another word is nataf. He can open up the heavens. This is what James was doing. This is the best example. What we were doing in the last song was a nataf prophetic declaration. It was saying we can open the heavens, and all of a sudden everybody under that portal can come into a place of breakthrough. But it's different when you're using sound to do it, because sound creates movement. So by him singing it, something went in you different from just somebody saying it. Because it had a harmony and a motion and a power that had built from the time Leanne opened her voice until that was sung. Then nataf, all of a sudden, the heavens opened and rain started coming down. That's what the word means. Shamar means you're watching. You're watching after that which you've heard. So it's a little different than prophesying. It's when Elijah said, it won't rain for 3.5 years. You're going to have to watch for 3.5 years to see what is the progression that is bringing us into this place of rain. Now, this is probably one of the most important words linked with prophecy in your life, because God says things to people and they quit waiting. and they quit watching. And all of a sudden, they lose the power of his voice. Matter of fact, Eleanor, come up. I want you to share the dream you had. Just come stand up here. Now, here's another thing that's important. You prophesy according to your faith. Therefore, there's another activation you've got to have that goes with prophecy, and it's called an activation of a gift of faith. Without faith beginning to stir, and faith comes from hearing. See, it's like a circle. Hearing is going to give you faith, and then faith is going to cause you to prophesy and speak, and then it's going to create motion. Now, hear this Shamar dream.
It was actually a vision that I had about 3 weeks ago. The Lord caught me up into the heavens. And as I was caught up into the heavens, there stood before me a double gate. And in front of the gates were an angel, a warrior angel. And he was dressed in battle array, and he was piercing down, looking intently at my heart. And I got the feeling that he was measuring my desires. And as I began to look and as he was piercing into my heart, I almost began to sink in myself because of the piercingness of his eyes. But my heart was exploding with the desires of the Lord for more. And right when I thought the angel wasn't going to let me in through these double doors, came my son, who has passed about 1.5 years ago. He came running behind the angel and said, "That's my mom. That's my mom. That's my mom. Let her in. She loves Jesus with all of her heart." And immediately the angel opened the double gates, and I begin to move forward. And as I begin to move forward, I look down the corridor of time, look down the corridor, and there were doors and doors and doors. And the angel led me to this one door. And over the door was called the law of attraction. And I said, "What is this, Lord?" And he said, "This is out of Psalms 37. He said, "Because you have delighted yourself in me, I'm going to give you the desires of your heart. Because you have aligned your mind, your will, and your emotions with me, I will cause you to have the desires of your heart." He said, "Begin to write down the desires of your heart. Begin to declare them and to decree them, and tell my church that it is time to declare and to decree the desires of their heart at this time."
So see, what God is going to do is activate something in you. First of all, it was Eleanor's desire to be able to see her son secured in eternity. Now, by seeing her son secured in eternity, she was able to see the opening that the Lord had for her even here in the earth realm. Now, what she's got to do is watch for the doors that are linked with the law of attraction that will cause her desire to be pulled through in time to manifest through that door. I'm going to ask Linda and I'm going to ask Anita Nolder also to come up. Now, see, God is speaking to us lots of the time. He's trying to get our attention. We're moving in this way of moving forward. Now, let me show you some of the ways he speaks. Go ahead and show that, Brian. He's going to speak through the Word of God. That's why you want to stay very disciplined. This Word is alive. It's not just graphe. It is living. It's creating motion in you when you read it. He has this small voice where all of a sudden you'll just know what you're supposed to do. He has other people in your life. When you can't hear God, trust me, somebody will come along to tell you what he's saying to you. Usually an authority. He says in Romans, he speaks in creation around you. He comes to you in dreams and visions. He uses circumstances to speak to you. He uses angels to talk to you. Marty came to me and gave me a word the other day because an angel came to her and she said, this is what the angel looked like. I knew exactly what it meant to me. And it moved me in a direction and I had breakthrough. Then he can actually speak loud enough that it appears to be audible. Now, I want to ask Anita to share a dream she had. They have moved down here recently. They've been going through a big transition from being in ministry for several years into the business world, into what God is doing, into moving, and all of a sudden she had a dream this past week.
I had a dream that my husband and I were driving in our silver car. All of a sudden, down the road, minding our own business, I believe, and I saw what to be a large bird coming across the windshield, and it was like right on the windshield. And then Mike slowed down, and we stopped and we watched it. And I rolled down my window so I could get a better look at it, and the bird tried to get in my window. So as I'm doing that, I just opened the door, and I got out of the car. I stood up on an embankment that was next to the car that was green, and I stood there, and the big bird, which was all white, and it had very little black on its tips of its wings, and kind of like an outline, and it appeared to be an eagle. And as I was standing on the embankment, it came up and it sat on my shoulder with both wings down, sat there still. And I could feel the weight of the bird setting on my shoulder. And it seemed to be, to me, 4 feet high, very high, sitting on my shoulder with its wings still. And I said to Mike, the door was open in the car, I said, get a picture of this. This is incredible. And he was moving around the phone, he couldn't get the picture on the phone because he couldn't get the phone to work. And I go, this is incredible.
Now we're going to prophesy this. See, when God gives you revelation, reveals something to you, then he wants it spoken from his heart so you know what he's saying to you in it. And God speaks in symbols. He speaks in dreams. White birds, white buffaloes, they all have great significance. Barbie will be speaking some on this. And the Lord would say to you, daughter, because you've waited and you have continued to just go down the path that I have put you on, I am now coming to visit you. I say, because you've waited, I will now begin to rest upon you and renew your authority in a new way. The Lord says, you will mount up with me into a place to see. Because you have rested, now the promises that you have watched for, you will now begin to see manifest, saith the Lord. I say to you, you can't capture them through your natural mind. You can't capture them through any natural means. But now you will begin to see by the Spirit the direction that I am taking you, and I will guide you with the eye of an eagle, my eagle eye, into the fullness of the plan that I have for you. Let's thank God for that.
And Anita, what I heard in that is that even though it seemed like your path of redemption was through ministry, through your silver car, the Lord said, my greatest visitation for you will be when you step out of the car and you step up onto the high place that I'm calling you to.
Wow. Let me just stay up here. Now, let me share a couple of things with you, and then we want to go to the next thing. So there's this activation of prophecy and revelation. There's this activation of faith. And then there's this movement that's going on in time this year to do something. Now, with that, Brian, just skip over. Look at what God is bringing down, and this is what Eleanor was saying to us. He's bringing down the sword that's cutting asunder soul and spirit. See, the Word of God, we prophesy according to how we hear. The Word of God is quick and powerful, sharper than any two-edged sword, piercing asunder soul and spirit, going down into the bone marrow, things that are resting in our blood structure. Now, this year is coming alive. Because God's cutting through a lot of our soulish nature so we can hear. And He's moving this in to separate out. We're in this separation. I think this will be going on especially in through April and then up through July of this year. You're going through this incredible dividing out so you begin to know the will of God for your life. Now, this is really what it looks like because it's causing your inner person to, and go ahead, Brian, it's causing it to come alive because He's cutting away emotional structures and wrong desires, and it's causing this brightness of His Spirit and glory to start rising up within you. Therefore, He comes down and He starts resting, and that river of God, you could look at it from a glory or a light, but it's the same way with the river. All of a sudden, the river in you starts flowing and starts coming up. Now, let me show you desires for a moment, and then I want Linda to share a dream she had. Desires comprise a great part of our soul life. They've been put into us from generations, up to 4 generations. Only by you getting to a place with the Lord to cut all that stuff away can His desire come into its fullness. And what happens, I see with a lot of people, they're hearing out of their desire. And that's why there's some confusion in the prophetic, and that's why you have to have people help you in the midst of your hearing. Never say, I'm going to tell you what God's saying. Never buy this. I'm going to tell you what God's saying, but I don't want you to tell anybody. That isn't how God operates. When God tells you something, He wants you to find counsel over what He's trying to tell you. So He's helping you come into the fullness of what He's speaking. And so we can confuse feelings, can cause us to misinterpret the will of God. That's why I think we're going through a lot right now, sorting through a lot. And anytime self is the center. Now, one of the things I do, you're going to have to learn to treat self and Satan very similar. Because if self becomes the center of what you're about, all of a sudden you can end up as messed up as Judas did. I mean, Peter had enough problems, and that's the way most of us look. But Judas' self-will became his rule. And so just always be aware of how you're pushing to do self. That's just really how simple it is. I don't have a lot of rules, regulate, anything to say to you, but if you're trying to force something that you want to see happen, you can get yourself in a mess. All right? Now, desire cooperates with your own ideas. Also, that's why strongholds are going to be planted right next to your gift. So those strongholds are going to speak down into your desire function. Because Satan is trying to shift your desire to do his will. It says that about Christians in 2 Corinthians and 2 Timothy chapter 2. That there were these 2 Christians that they actually kept being shifted till they were eventually doing the will of Satan. Now these are Christians. So you've got to know it's this desire function we're working with. Now, what desire can do is create just a life of feeling for you. If feeling isn't satisfied, you usually go into depression. And so you've got to know the difference between feeling and faith. They're not the same. Once you move by faith, you get feeling. That's what I love about Doris, working with her all these years. She just moves by faith. She doesn't have to feel anything or do anything. Sometimes you're going to have that incredible download of God's emotion. But you might not. You just might have to take a step and feel nothing. And that's how you begin to discern His voice in an incredible way. So you've got to know the Lord is trying to get us to deal with this function of desire. Now I'm going to ask Linda to share the dream. She was in the barrel room today, and she said, I had a dream last night. Let me share it.
Well, in my dream, there were two groups of people, and each of them was working on a project. And one group was working on a project that had something to do with elections, and I wasn't sure exactly what it was. If it was a project about polling or surveys, or it was something about elections. And the other group was working on a project to teach people how to read. And each of them was building a device that was going to help them with their project. And they were using the same building materials for each device, even though they were completely different for their function. And so people kept getting the projects confused because they were using the same materials in them. And my daughter Lindy was working on the project for teaching people to read, and people kept saying she was working on the election project, and I would say, no, she's on the other one. And they would say, but they look the same. I said, no, she is on this one. And what they were using to build these devices for their projects were squares, about 6 inches square of chocolate wafer cookies. And they were being very careful in the way they stacked them up. And, these were three-dimensional, and they had a team of people working around to construct their device out of the wafer cookies. And at the end, if your device worked and you were successful in your project, you got to eat the device.
Tell somebody, I'm working toward tasting and seeing that the Lord is good. Now, you hear what the Lord was saying to us. I'm going to start giving you all you need to move with into the future. Don't try to think that just one thing can be used in one way, because I'm a very efficient, creative God. And if you'll move with me, I will cause you to build what I'm asking you to build this season. Build means add sons and daughters too. That's what it means in Hebrews. I'll have you build in a way that I will extend your portion into another dimension. And then I say to you, I will reward you, and you will taste and see that I am good. Now, here's the last thing I'm going to do. You prophesy and predict, and you interpret your future. See, it's not just about what's gone on in your past, what's happening today. But see, God wants to reveal to you an expected end that you've never seen before. He can't do that without the prophetic revelatory gift being activated. He can't do it without stirring up your faith. And once those two things happen, all of a sudden He activates your future. Now, with that, let me give you just some things to write down. Thank you, Brian, for helping me. Just leave that up there. God is moving in the earth so you can fulfill what He's called you to fulfill. This is real simple. This is what the Word of God is about. There are certain plans that He has, you even find this in the Word, that have not been fulfilled. We haven't seen the nations come into that place of choosing to celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles. We haven't seen lots of things that He's still waiting. We haven't seen the glory coming back through the eastern gate. We haven't seen Armageddon. There's things in your life you haven't seen. Without predictive prophecy, you won't see it, because you'll lose sight of what you're looking for. There are blessings in heavenly places that are waiting, and this is one of the things I think Anita's dream had in it also, that are waiting to be bestowed to you in time. I think that was Eleanor's dream too. See, in other words, you're going to have to see into a place of eternity and start speaking. Eleanor's going to have to prophesy. Lord, show me that law of attraction. Start speaking it into her atmosphere. Because, see, we have His name. His name is in us. His name is linked with the atmosphere around us. So when we prophesy it, He starts moving it in the atmosphere. There are certain things that He knows, and He won't do anything without first telling somebody in the earth realm, expressing His heart and mind for them to express. They won't happen. He's not in time. He can outwait us. He can skip 4 generations that won't listen to it, and then find someone who will. That's the issue. That's the whole principle of Samuel. There's a progression in your word. He started with Adam. He had to move through Noah. He had to find Abraham. He had to keep moving. Isaac had to prophesy to both boys. See, there's this progression going on that's working the will of God all around you. And because it's a progression, He's already trying to set someone in your path 3 months from now so that you progress. Tell somebody, I don't want to stop here. That's how prophecy works. He has a future and a hope. And see, expectation is the word linked with future, and it's linked with your desire function of your emotion. So if that gets all twisted, you're going to lose the hope of seeing the fullness of what you have planned, of what He has planned for you. Therefore, you have to keep prophesying and moving so that this expected end, which is also linked with a future point, it's not just linked with today. This is present in time, but when you start hearing God, He starts extending the horizon line, you see further. One of the things that has been one of my greatest joy is pastoring prophetic people? Because they hear. And by pastoring them, and we'll talk about that some tomorrow, they're causing the kingdom to advance. See, most churches, it's not that they really don't believe in prophecy, because if they really didn't believe in prophecy, they would have no vision. They would have the history of the word. That's all they would have. So it's just ignorance, religious ignorance, that makes them say that. But what happens to them is they don't want to deal with interpreting what God is saying in a context that they might not understand. So they want to keep concrete in 1, 2, 3, 4 of what they know. Where if we don't do that in God's gatherings, we're going to lose sight of where we're going. And you're going to hear these people help you do that. Finally, he's not only interested in the nations becoming his inheritance. What the book of Ephesians is about is you. He's interested in you knowing what you're here for. That's why he wants to speak to us. That's why he has to move us. That's why he has to position us. That's why if we're stubborn, we stay in boundaries we don't belong in. And we don't even have the faith to go through death. We don't have the faith to go through dying. We don't have the faith to come to that expected end that God had for us. So I want us to stand up tonight, and this is the way I want to end tonight, is by activating this gift that God has put in the body. And he says we desire to express this gift. 1 Corinthians 14:1. That you are to have such a desire. That means you have such a longing to express it. What he's speaking to you to change the atmosphere around you and the people around you, the place around you, but for you to become all that he created you to be. Now let's just lift our hands. Father, right now in the name of Jesus, Father, we decree that there is the power of your name is beginning to stir within our river. Just let it stir. We say, hallowed be thy name. Father, when we say hallowed, we say cut away the common things that's keeping us from seeing you. Now, Father, I activate the gift of prophecy in people here. I say, Father, in this environment, when they walk in, they'll start hearing in a way they've never heard before. Lord, they'll start seeing in ways they've never seen before. They'll start having the ability to move in ways they've never moved before. Father, I loose the hearing ability. I loose dreams, visions. I say the word of God in any place it's become stale, we remove the dust off of the word. We say send a wind to blow the dust off of it. Now, Father, I say let faith arise. Let the gift of faith begin to move with this gift of prophecy. Let the spirit of prophecy rest in the place. Now put your hand on someone around you and just say, let the gift arise. Stir up faith by the laying on of hands. To right now, just say, by the laying on of hands, I stir up the gift of faith. And then, Father, I say, let our desires be realigned, and I loose the power of expectation to come alive in your people. We say, depression go, oppression go. We say, all of what we've been through, we say, new expectations arise. New expectations arise. I say, when we lie down, when we rise up, let new expectations arise. Now let's give a shout and thank Him for what all He's going to do.